To start the Entrelac crochet blanket, we are going to start with a slip stitch and then make a chain of 21. We're going to start with 2 squares for the center of this blanket. And what we're going to do is when we work across, we're going to work across 6 and then up the side for 5 rows. Then across 6, then up the side for 5 rows, which will equal 2 squares. Now in this stitch, usually you go into the second chain from the hook, but in this case we are going to turn our chain over and go in the back bump in that first chain. Let me get a little closer. So if you turn your chain over, you see that bump right there, and stick your hook into that bump and then draw up a loop. Okay, now we're going to go in the next one and draw up a loop. The bump, say the front of your chain looks like a V, and on the back there's a bump. Insert the hook in there and draw up a loop. We're going to do this until we have 7 loops on the hook. 2, 4, 5, 2 more, 6, 7. Okay, now we're going to work off these loops. In regular Tunisian crochet, I'm going to back out here, you draw through 1 loop and then through 2, but because we're working up the chain to make it the side here, we're not going to do that. We're going to yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2, and you yarn over and draw through 2 6 times. Now you only have 1 loop left on the hook. Alright, now we're going to work across in these vertical bars. You see these lines coming up and down right here? Those are the stitches we're going to work into. We're going to skip this first one that's below the hook, and we're going to put the hook in the next vertical bar, draw up a loop. Go in the next vertical bar, draw up a loop. And when we get across here, we'll have 6 loops on our hook. Okay. Now if I went too fast for you, you can pause and catch up, and I recommend watching the video through first and then pick up your hook and yarn and then follow along, and as you follow along, pause the video. Okay, we have 6 loops on the hook. Now I'm going to go over here to my chain again, part that I haven't worked in, and go into the bump. If you look, we've gone into this chain here. This is the next one we haven't worked in, so we got to go into that bump on the back of the chain and draw up a 7th loop. Now we have 7 loops on the hook. We yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2, do that all the way across until we only have 1 loop left on the hook. Okay, now we have 2 rows of our first square finished, and we're going to do this again. Insert the hook, draw up a loop, go behind that vertical bar, draw up a loop, all the way across until we have 6 loops on our hook. 6 loops. Now we're going to go over to the chain, go in that bump on the back of the chain, draw up a 7th loop. Now we're just going to yarn over and draw through 2. So you see in this stitch here, you always have the right side of your work facing you, and by now your piece is going to start to curl. That is just the nature of this stitch. When we're finished the blanket, we're going to have to block it using a little steam or a little bit of water and rolling it in a towel or pinning it out. But we'll get to that when the time comes. So far we have 3 rows. We need to have 5 to finish the square. So we're going to do the same thing for 2 more rows. Work across. Got 6 loops on the hook. Make our 7th loop in the back bump of the chain. And now we're going to yarn over and draw through 6 times, which will be all the way across until we have 1 loop left. And we've got 1 more row to make, so I'm just going to continue on. This stitch seems rather continuous because the last loop on your hook for 1 row is the first loop of the next row. Okay, we got 6, and then the back bump, 7, and then we'll work them off. Okay, we've got our 5 rows, and you can see the chain goes across here and up the side. Now we are going to slip stitch bind off. You go under the vertical bar, draw the loop up, and the first loop through the second loop. And you ask me why I draw the loop up first and then the first one through, because if you do it all in one motion, sometimes this loop here is going to be too small because it's fitting around the throat of the hook. But if we do it, we'll put the hook in and draw up the loop and slide it back onto the wide part of the hook, your loop's larger and it will be a nice loose bind off. Because we need to have it loose, because when we do the next row we're going to work into these slip stitches. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I need 2 more slip stitches. 5, and your 6th slip stitch is going to go into the bump on the back of the chain, your next chain stitch. Okay, so we have our first square for our Entrelac crochet finished. We'll continue with the second square in the next video.